SIG-23, 24 November 2020. I'm going to be doing two of these back to back from FortObserver.com because I didn't get to one yesterday and I had connectivity issues. So here we go. Low intensity conflict in some. Portland anarchists deceive police response. Approximately 100 anarchists vandalized over 24 businesses for Trans Remembrance Day. Another group vandalized the Mexican consulate, senseless, and Multnomah County Courthouse in another part of the city. Observers note, last week, anti-fascist groups announced the beginning of offensive counterintelligence campaigns. It appears that the Portland Police Bureau were the first victims of deliberate deception. The prior week, area activists widely announced a demonstration against the federal courthouse, apparently as an effort to attract law enforcement attention, while activists vandalized 27 businesses in another area of town. Further offensive intelligence efforts will continue to disrupt law enforcement preparation and response to far-left rioters. Alleged Biden supporter drives vehicle into pro-Trump rally. You think this is going to stop? Even if Biden is confirmed? A Biden supporter allegedly drove his vehicle intentionally onto a sidewalk occupied by Trump supporters at a Stop the Steal rally in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Trump supporters reported seeing the driver on the opposite side of the street before the incident, arguing whether the Trump supporters. Observers note, pro-Trump Stop the Steal rallies took place in at least 14 different states over the weekend, with several fights and assaults reported. Political violence at these events is likely to continue as the election results remain contested. SRA fundraising to build their own gun range. The Socialist Rifle Association, or the SRA, launched their Community Range and Defense Education Project, the purpose of which is to construct an SRA member-only shooting range and training facility somewhere in the Northeast United States. I'm going to guess Vermont. The main organizers, who are from the Boston SRA chapter, claim that instructors and members have been banned from local ranges for being leftists, LGBTQ, or BIPOC. By people of color? Okay, whatever. Observers note, in previous years, conservative groups have investigated alleged radical Islamic training compounds, and the SRA range is likely to draw similar interest. The range would become a security challenge as SRA members are photographed entering and exiting the range. Armed leftists set up armed checkpoints in Atlanta. Members of armed leftist groups in Atlanta, Georgia, claim to have confronted members of the Proud Boys at armed checkpoints set up in response to pro-Trump rallies. One armed leftist at the event claimed that a Proud Boy had wandered from the larger group and arrived at the leftists' checkpoint, and insinuated that the Proud Boys aren't as tough when they encounter armed communists. Where was law enforcement? In Atlanta, this is Observer's note. In Atlanta, armed leftists formed shield lines blocking roads and used scouts and radio communication to maintain situational awareness on the locations of right-wing groups and law enforcement. Armed BLM activists were also seen marching in Cincinnati, Ohio with protesters. Proud Boys to attend DC Trump March. Black Lives Matter chat room participants are tracking which groups will attend the 2 December March for Trump in Washington, D.C. In response to the Proud Boys returning to the D.C. area, activists are vowing to outnumber Proud Boys 10-1 in order to keep D.C. safe. who exactly is the party responsible for keeping DC as unsafe as it is? Riddle me that. Observer's note. The weekend of the Million MAGA March had multiple incidents of violence between far-left groups and the Proud Boys. The likelihood of violence in DC the weekend of 2 December is high. Leftist support groups improve mapping and ComSec. A far-left intelligence support group posted updated maps of Washington, D.C. to aid activists and anti-fascists on the ground. The maps marked the location of police buildings, courthouses, military facilities, public parks, federal buildings, and university campuses. Another leftist communication support group instructed activists to establish areas of operations, carry out pre-operational briefings, and use predetermined changing call signs. Observer's note. This particular group had originally focused on mapping police precinct locations in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. Improved mapping and more sophisticated communications procedures would enable activists and rioters to evade law enforcement. Portland anti-fascists post wanted posters for Mayor Ted Wheeler. Leftists posted wanted posters for recently re-elected, of course he was, Portland, Oregon Mayor Ted Wheeler. The posters read, "Wanted for assault, murder, and crimes against humanity, Edward, in quotations, tear gas Ted Wheeler, dead or alive. Reward from the people of Portland, $10 million. Observer's note. Propaganda flyers are designed to build popular support for insurgent movements and undermine the government. These posters labeling Wheeler a murderer specifically undermine the mayor's authority and legitimacy. So the upcoming event calendar this week, 23rd to the 29th. Indigenous resistance coast to coast, multiple cities. 26 November, MAGA Thanksgiving and counter-protest, Chicago, Illinois. 28 November, Stop the Steal, pro-Trump, St. Paul, Minnesota. 7 December, No More Pigs, the They-Them Collective, Washington, D.C. 12 December, March for Trump, Washington, D.C. You know, the people that voted for Trump, I hope it's not going to be business as usual and just roll over and take it for another 4 or 8 or however many years, because after this, if this isn't called for Trump because of every bit of fraud that the Democrats have wrought in this election, there won't be another election. Or if it will be one of those types of elections that you might see in Venezuela, Cuba, Vietnam, China. You know, a sham election in which you're voting for one party, just different faces of the same party. There's about 75 million people that are going to really have to decide exactly which country they want to live in, what kind of a country they want to live in, where they're going to go, what are they going to do. Hopefully it won't be a rollover, because if the United States goes, if it's not, to use words popular right now, if it's not reset to what the country is supposed to be based on the founding principles that the country is based on, actually having people uphold the Constitution of the United States, the very thing that constitutes our republic. If none of this is upheld, as Reagan, to paraphrase Reagan, basically, where else, if liberty dies in the United States, if freedom dies in the United States because we've allowed leftists to take it over and have radically since about 63, 62, there won't be any place else to go like this. 623 out.